All right, all right, all right. Make sure we're up and live here. So today, I saw a bunch of stuff today, but actually one of the things that I saw that I thought was pretty cool was just a few minutes ago. I was coming onto TikTok to be able to do a live, and I was just kind of briefly scrolling through TikTok. And howdy to all those who joined. And anyway, I saw this. It was Bill Burr, right? So Bill Burr is talking about like this CEO thing, because this is still going on, right? And it's fine. I mean, it's a fascinating case. And and while it's like at the risk of sounding redundant, I don't generally do a whole bunch of like current event stuff, but like there's a lot to learn from this. And particularly in the finance world, because insurance is just banking done in reverse. So it's the same business model done in reverse. And so, but anyway, he was talking about the same thing that I talked about like last week, where I pointed out that the kind of the bigger story isn't, I mean, it's a big story, right, that some CEO gets whacked, but it's a bigger story, the lack of empathy on the part of the public at large, right? So those of us out here in the real world, like how many of us just kind of don't care? We're like, I mean, whatever, I mean, like, and this is, to me, this is the bigger story. So of course, now what has to happen, and this is something that I've noticed, right? Just like you see this woman in Florida who says, denied if had to pose or something like that, and now she's got like $100,000 worth of bail, and now she has, she's facing 15 years, because they're just inventing stuff to pose or something like that, and now she's got like $100,000 worth of bail, and now she has, she's facing 15 years, because they're just inventing stuff to charge people with. Well, of course they are. Of course they are. They're just going to keep inventing things just like they're inventing reasons to cancel people's insurance. They invent reasons to, even for homeowners insurance, right? Like I just saw there was another video where somebody posted like Liberty Mutual, like, and this is a news story, so I mean there's no slander here. I'm just straight saying, like, Liberty Mutual sends this couple a letter and they say, oh hey, we're canceling she should be set free, your insurance because your roof has mold. And they're like, what? And it was a picture of like a Google Earth shot of their house. And they're like, where are you seeing mold, dude? And the thing is that's not even possible to have mold. I mean, if you understand kind of how mold works, you need a kind of an environment for that. And the top of the roof of a house that is getting direct sunlight, which is UV, it isn't really possible to have mold of that kind on top of the shingles, right? And because they had asphalt, architectural shingles. So anyway, so I see like all this stuff, and it's like, well, dude, is any wonder why nobody cares what happens to these, these scammers? And that's what they are. These guys are scammers. Insurance, banking, taxes, all of that. This stuff is all just a scam. All of it's a scam. It's designed to be a scam. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I see this kind of stuff, and it's like, I'm kind of with you on that. But there shouldn't be any surprise that there's no empathy. But anyway, so of course the idea of the government is to like put their foot down on all this, and like and lock people up and come up with these crazy charges and so forth. And of course, all that's going to do is make people even more angry, which it should, right? I mean, I'm the largest critic that I know of the conservatives. I am, to my knowledge. I don't think there's any bigger critic of conservatives. Not Bill Maher, not any of those guys. Like, they can't touch me on this one, because I actually happen to agree with the fundamentals, and that's why they can't touch me on this one. Because my statement to the conservatives is, okay, hold on, you have a safe full of firearms. You guys, some of these guys have basements full of all of this stuff. And you let all of those J6 people, rot in prison. What am I to make of that? Other than, not only is that hypocrisy, it's like, oh, but law and order, screw law and order. Like, why are you, like, dude, you guys openly admit it's a rigged system. So if it's a rigged system, then there's no law and order. Then that means you should be able to do whatever it is you have to do to get your country back. Right? And so the conservatives have nowhere to go, because I just closed them down on that with their own rhetoric, because they're right. They're right about that. Like, all right, well, so, and just like the what's his name? Snowden, Ed Snowden, who's like living in Russia. Because he can't come back to the U.S. Like, well, why is it that the Orange Man hates Ed Snowden? Well, because Ed Snowden exposed just how bad the government actually is. He exposed all their crap. He told the whole world, yeah, the U.S. government is doing exactly what everybody thinks they are. They're spying on people. They're taking their data. They're doing everything they can to basically plague the American people. Oh, so if that's all true, and it certainly, from what I can see, it certainly seems to be the case, well, then it seems to me like your government's been hijacked. And if your government's been hijacked and you have a safe or two or a basement full of, like the basement in Tremors, right? Remember the movie Tremors? Any of you out there remember that? It's kind of a cult movie. Okay, so the Michael Gross character, he's got this basement that's just a huge armory of like every possible weapon you can imagine. Like, dude, I know people like that. And like, okay, yeah, shut up about it, because clearly, you're willing to let, if somebody actually does fight back, you're willing to throw those people under the bus because law and order. Screw law and order. So, I hate to be a jerk about this, but it's like, dude, this is the truth, right? And it's like, there's no way out of this. So unless you're willing to say, okay, hey, listen, no, I don't care what happens to some CEO gets whacked over God knows what. Like, nah, dude, who cares? Who cares? And there's no reason to really care about them. Hold on a second here. I forgot all about this. Have the big hair going on and stuff like that. Yeah, I'll be taking these Huggies and whatever cash you got in the register. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. So, there we go. So let's see what we got for messages. Been running red light. Yes, I know you should. We're close. You saw that video, actually, the running red lights video. That was actually a short story I wrote a long time ago. I've never published it or anything. That was actually started as a short story that I wrote a long time ago. A long time ago, being like 3 or 4 years ago. But it was something to that effect. And it was just talking about the nascent beginning of understanding that it's important to become comfortable with being a criminal. Because the term criminal is a very loose word. It's sort of like sin. It's sort of like good and evil, all these things. It's in the eye of the beholder. Okay? I mean, to the cow, right? If you're a bovine, if you're a cow and a human being wants to eat you, what's their perspective on that? I mean, so there is a perspective involved there. I'm not saying that you just randomly go crazy or anything. I'm not saying that at all. But, you could certainly take the time to think it through and say, well, hold on a moment here. It's that good and evil, right and wrong kind of thing versus legal and illegal. And there's a whole world of people right now that because it's legal, that means we should go ahead and do it. Like, that's not... You can do a lot of things. You probably should not do them, right? I mean, you can jump into a vat of acid. You probably shouldn't do that, right? Your numbers hit an all-time high. I don't know what that means. TikTok, sorry. I'm not keeping track. I probably should keep track of this stuff, but I'm not trying to, like... Again, for me, this is more of just trying to get information out. I'm not after like buddies and friends and so forth. I mean, you guys, I like all my people, but I'm pointing out that like that isn't my goal. My goal is to try and get as much information out there as possible, and at least if I can help a few people and stuff. What are you doing about the J6ers? Nothing. I wasn't there, and that's my point. Is I wasn't there for a reason, because like I don't support a lot of this stuff. So I think anybody pushing the narrative that you're going to be able to find a political solution to all of this, I think that you're intellectually dishonest. I think that to me, people who say, no, we can have a political solution to something are like people coming to me saying, I got a blackjack system. Stop right there. Stop right there. Because let me just explain math to you. No, you don't have, that is not a solution. Sorry. You might like, I got a roulette system. Yeah. Russian roulette. Let's see here. So, let's see. I'm a drone that captures. The drone's floating. I need to tip this up a second here. So bear with me on a technicality. just a bit. So I'm using this tripod, and it's kind of an old tripod, and it's kind of wobbly. So I haven't decided to go ahead and do any kind of big purchases or anything like that. I'm doing another purchase right now, and it's kind of taking a lot of my focus. Luigi was just an angry citizen? Yeah, probably. I mean, that's just it. The broader point that I was making was whether or not somebody was justified in their anger and justified in their actions. I'm not even trying to justify anybody's actions. I'm just pointing out, of course, from my perspective, is the lack of empathy, which to me is the more interesting story because it says a lot about what's going on. And of course, I talk about the money issue here all the time. And when I talk about the money issue, that means exposing scams. And insurance is a mathematical scam. There is no mathematical way to make insurance work. It's just not possible, and it's certainly not possible without government printing money on the back end to bail you out of your inevitable bankruptcy. Because you understand the math behind it. You're taking in premiums, and then which is your privatized gains, and then you're socializing the losses. That's exactly how insurance companies work. They bring money in, and then it has to be more than what they paid out in claims. So insurance companies know, unlike landlords, they know that people's incomes are kind of maxing out in terms of how much money they can afford to pay. Okay, they do keep, like I said, insurance companies, unlike your run-of-the-mill garden variety rent-seeking landlord, they do tend to keep track of this stuff. And if they start seeing that people's incomes are getting so stretched out to the point where they can no longer pay these premiums, that means they can only cut the other side, which means denying claims. This is just a fact. I saw there was some lady on TikTok, again today, just getting set up. She's talking about, people who have all their money invested in all these 401ks and all these different investment vehicles. And this is money that are probably invested in all these things. Like, well, why is it that people don't take their money out of it and go do something else with it? Yeah, this is what I've asked for a long time. I mean, full disclosure, I have no exposure to the securities markets. None. Because I don't support it. Just how it works. And until people get that attitude, you get a little bit of an attitude about it, then it's just gonna get worse. And you could say, like, well, but where do I save my money? Well, you certainly don't save it in the stock market, because that's not the definition of saving, right? We've been over this on many occasions. Every 401k you've ever signed, every investment fund, every mutual fund, every hedge fund, it doesn't matter. Everything you've ever signed in your entire life, it says, in usually bold, italicized, underscored, all caps print, you understand the risks involved in all of this, and you agree to lose every penny that you put in here. And in some cases, even more than your original investment. Some all or more than your original investment. So it says that in every single brokerage account. Howdy. So that said, because people have agreed to all of that, that isn't by definition not savings. Savings involves little risk or no risk, ideally. Zero risk. That's the idea of savings, because you're saving your money to do something with it later on. So there we go. I like the rectangle drone. I've never seen the rectangle drone. Sorry, I've been busy this week, and I'll probably be getting busier. Actually, just so anybody knows, I'll be getting busier and busier and stuff. And I will probably end up, just in case anybody knows or cares, or just so anybody knows, I will probably be switching from this account in some point in the future, and you probably won't be seeing me much on any of this account. Not because I don't mind doing this, but because I'm actually probably going to I might do another channel that is focused more on building, and so, because I mean, like, all these videos are going to stay. And anytime you can go back and you can watch all this stuff. I mean, like, most of the teaching and educational aspect of it, I covered all that stuff like 2-3 years ago. And it is still up on the other platform. So, and it is still there, and I have not taken any of that down. Yeah, I got tickets sitting in the, yeah, I know. I hate that. That's so wrong. I don't, it's so wrong. Don't you shine some more? Crap, that cheat again. Okay. Hold on. Something about McDonald's. Any McDonald's? Yes. Well, come on, darn it. There we go. It's like you guys can't see it, but I can see it. Like I'm at an angle. So anyway, so do you think Trump's going to stay in power for the full? Yeah, probably. I don't see any reason why not. I don't, I mean, like, again, I'm not a terribly I mean, I follow politics because professionally I kind of have to, but I mean, I don't think he's going anywhere. His winning, for the people who asked me, what was it, like 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, or whatever it was, they asked me, if I was surprised by the Trump victory. No, not even in the slightest. In fact, I called that back in October, that yeah, he would win, and he probably would win by a minimum of 15 electoral votes, and he'd probably get a 2% popular vote over and above. And I don't know if he did or not, but if it was 2%, it might be two. It's probably more than that. But that was my call back in October, so that wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. How do we recognize this mess? Which mess are we talking about? Just so I know here. Thank you, Fish Hook. Always appreciate it. Let's see. Media certainly doesn't understand. Well, we have a huge lack of empathy. Yeah, they're playing a role. They know. They know why nobody cares. They know why the average American is not only are they, if they're not glad about it, if they're not happy about it, they're at least indifferent. I put myself into the indifferent category. For me, I'm indifferent because it's like this does not come as a surprise to me. You screw people long enough on a. We're not talking about, and I've said this for a long time. It's different if, like, let's say that you're like a friend, borrows like $1,000 from you or something, and then never pays it back, right? And they just totally screw you and everything. That hits a little different than a group of people that are screwing people on an industrial level, on a monthly basis. And then if you are upset about being screwed on a monthly basis by these people, and you start saying things about it, they will become angry with you, and they'll demote your account, and on and on, all these kinds of things. And if you really get under their skin, they'll eventually just unperson you from the internet. Things like that. Like, when you screw people at an industrial level like that, you're going, John F. Kennedy said, there's a quote from him. He says, when you make a peaceful revolution impossible, you make a violent revolution inevitable. And we're rapidly approaching it. So, let's see here. Insurance companies, source of income, and the whole finish. Yeah, it is a Ponzi scheme. That's what I'm saying. It's been a Ponzi scheme for a long time. And for insurance is banking done in reverse. It's the same basic business model, but it's done in reverse. You prepay for a loan that you then have to usually sue them to get them to pay out. It's really horrible. So, Rain or barbecue. Oh, this is rain. I'm in South Texas, so it's typical South Texas. Like fall time. It's like 1,000,000 degrees out here, but it's raining. So it's not 1,000,000 degrees. It's something like 70 or something like that. That's still let's see here. Scroll down. Do you like gold coins? I do like gold coins. Let's see here. Thank Fish Hook. Let's see. I don't know what you mean. Sorry. Let's see here. Somebody sent me a lightning bolt. Again, I'll have to ask. I have to figure out what those are. Thank you for the lightning bolt. I don't know what it means, but thank you for it. Elites will win out eventually. Maybe. It's possible. You got to figure that the thing is if they do win, then it's a hollow victory. What exactly are the elites going to win if they win out over all this? Well, I guess winning, if you want to call it that, that'd be the complete and total destruction of the birth rates, right? Because, you've all heard me explain this to you before. If you haven't, for those of you who might be new and everything, I'd go so far as to point this out. The number one thing you look at with any economy, there's five total things. The first thing is the type of currency. The next is birth rates. The third is small business. That's all but completely gone in the U.S. now, which is why they don't need the IRS anymore. Like, why bother with having the IRS? IRS existed predominantly to go after small businesses and small business owners. Because why would you use the IRS to go after employees at a company? Their money is withheld. There's no reason to go after those people. There's no reason to go after the giant corporate oligarchs. They're the ones that are, first of all, most of them are exempt from a lot of these crazy laws. So it was there predominantly to go after small businesses and small business owners specifically. Well, you've all but eradicated them. So why even bother keeping the IRS around? It's a dead soldier. There's no reason to keep it. There's no reason to keep the IRS around if all of your small businesses are effectively gone. Or if your small businesses are just little microcosm franchises of these giant corporate oligarchs, right? They're just dealerships for these giant corporations. They control the pricing, and they make sure the government, the politicians get their cut, all they want. And so what do they need anybody to go around and collect? I mean, it's like it really is just, that's why most of your government employees, like just with this Doge nonsense that Elon and that other guy are doing, okay, so you're going to privatize a bunch of it, which is all that's going to end up happening. That's my prediction on it. Like, oh, look, so Trump's going to grandstand on it. He said, oh, look, we shrank the size of government. No, all you did was lateral all those government employees into so-called private sector. And of course, the private sector is owned by BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. That's who's going to own these so-called private enforcement bureaus and bureaucrats that work for the government. And they're just going to go to a building downtown where they sit and stare at their phone all day long and pretend to work to prop up commercial real estate prices, because Elon has this hard-on for having people come into the office. Like, go into the office for what? To do what precisely? And it's why I don't have a lot of respect for what Elon does. I just don't. I mean, I call it like I see it. And there's no, in other words, I point the same type of perception back at Elon that he would point at everybody else, right? He was famously quoted by saying something like, hey, if you show up at some meeting and it's just a big waste of your time, just leave. Yeah, if you're going to waste my time with all this nonsense about how you're going to shrink government, you're not going to shrink government. You're just going to ladder them somewhere else. Shrinking government means actually firing all these people and closing down all these agencies entirely. That's what that actually means. Hold on. Something about an island. Hang tight here. You look handsome. Well, thank you very much, Jennifer. I think I pronounced it right, Jennifer. Anyway, so hold on here. Waterboarding. South Padre Island. I don't know enough about it. Sorry. Let's see here. Show us around where you at looks like an interesting place. It's just my garage. There's the trash cans. There's a bunch of crap on my shelves. And there's my fridge, or my freezer, and my prep fridge, because I have a prep fridge. For those who don't know and stuff, I do a lot of cooking. So, let's see here. Hold on here. Hold on. I lost this thing. This thing is so it's like super duper sensitive. So if you just barely touch it, it scrolls. It's a constant battle. Every week I've dealt with this. What do you think about Canada? If you have any interest, well, okay. So here's the deal. My first thought when I heard we're going to make Canada the 51st state, all I could think of is man, has the U.S. gone so broke now that it has to annex Canada, for its oil to prop up its failing economy? Now, most of these economies, all jokes aside, if you guys really want to have my completely boring, which I just by looking at the numbers, I bore people to tears, and I know that. But if you want my completely boring, cold-eyed assessment of what's going on in actual economy, and all jokes aside, as I've pointed out on many occasions, this is the math catching up. You grow an economy one way, and that's by adding people. And if you're not going to add people, if you're not going to produce little kids, right? Because your economy is always 20, 25 years out, right? Most people don't see that, but it's the truth. Even if every woman of childbearing age right now were to be out to here with a kid for the next 10 years each, it would still be 20, 25 years before you'd see any of that actually really take a hit in the economy. And a bare minimum would be 15, and that would be the bare minimum would be 15. Because an economy is just people, right? Anything other than adding people to your economy is just money printing. You're just printing a bunch of money. You're not creating any you're not expanding your economy. You're not expanding your workforce. You're not reducing the amount of man hours or individual man hours necessary to produce your results. In other words, you have people that can work fewer and fewer hours, right? So, which is kind of what you want. Ideally, you shouldn't want, again, the Elon Musk thing. You shouldn't want people to be working 90 hours a week, like him. That's, most people don't want to be him, right? In terms of like the work that he's doing, the amount of time. I don't care about a 40,000 square foot mega mansion. I just did a video on this. Most people don't have the discipline to maintain a 4,000 square foot house, let alone 40,000 square feet. So when you don't add people to your economy, you get this. You get a slow, steady decline because you're going to have more deaths over births, right? Like this is just math, right? Think about it. Back in the 60s, I think it was 1961 is the peak for the peak birth year for baby boomers, right? That's 40,000 births per day. Imagine that for just a second here. Put like seriously, I mean, process that. Imagine a stadium of people every day being born into the economy, into the U.S. economy in the 60s. And then it like nosedives in the 70s, 1974, to where it just like, it's a small birth rate. There's not many 74 models out there, okay, by comparison. So as people age, right, they eventually, this comes to an end, not to get all existentialist about it, but we do understand that at a certain point, this does come to an end. This experiment, this simulation, I don't care what you call it, doesn't make any difference. It certainly appears, based on what we see, scientifically, that this does in fact come to an end. At some point when that happens, right, you take nothing with you, right? Despite what the pharaohs thought, you take nothing with you. And you then have all that excess left over. So if you had this huge population of people through the 60s, 70s, and 80s, all of them doing stuff, working places, consuming constantly, expanding their lives and lifestyles, in a what you would colloquially be referred to as a up economy. Well, yeah, it's an up economy because you had a lot of births, right, from 1946 to 1964. You had tons and tons of births. We are on the back end of that. And how many Gen Xers out there, my Gen Xers can sound off, how many of my Gen Xers out there had 6 kids? Not many of you. How many of you had 4 kids? Again, not many of you. How many of you had 2? Now we're getting close. Many just had 1. Now, so then let's move into millennials. Millennials, I mean, I don't know what to say to millennials, and I'm actually kind of closer to the millennials than I am the Gen Xers. Even I'm Gen X, but mathematically I'm closer to the millennials, and millennials are just as screwed, right? They're not even having kids in many cases because they look at the cost. They're like, dude, it's like the cost to do this. Yeah, it's because your currency's worthless. Your currency's dying. Your dollar's dead. That's why. So Gen Z, what are the Zoomers doing? Gen Z, I mean, you got a bunch of kids who don't even know what women are, right? I mean, not to overuse that trope, but like there is some truth to that. You got a whole bunch of Gen Zers who don't know what a woman is, and you also have a whole bunch of, I guess you have this, I guess unless it's a woman who's got like 100 guys, so, yeah, I mean, so, and of course, I mean, I just got to say something about this. Biologically speaking, that doesn't work. One man with 100 women, that actually worked biologically, because then you could expand your economy legitimately by potentially 100 births. The inverse is not the case. I mean, the inverse is most definitely not the case. So, which is one of the reasons why it like doesn't make any sense at all to me. I mean, just as a scientist, that makes like no sense to me whatsoever. I mean, yeah, I'm not judging anybody. I'm just pointing out that like it's kind of pointless. So as far as like what I think is, that we could, take on Canada and everything, I don't know. I mean, I think it's either it's probably a situation where Canada and the US are both like hyper broke. So they're like, all right, quick, let's get together and maybe we'll be slightly less broke because we'll just expand the physical pie, even though we screwed everything else up. We screwed the currency up. So let's see here. Elon is smart. I didn't say he wasn't. I said I have reservations as to whether or not that I think that, and I've said this before, I think Elon is in the exact same position Michael Jackson was in, and Elvis Presley and a bunch of these other people, where he's got a bunch of people that are surrounding him that just say yes to him for everything, and just agree with everything. Oh, yeah, we're sending everybody to Mars. Now, again, there's math. Okay, no. Love the demographics analysis. Yeah, I know, you're one of the few. You're one of the few who like the demo. Most people absolutely hate me when I bring that up, because it's accurate, unfortunately, and it's the most accurate way to predict like if you want to see the future, you look at your birth rates. That's why I say, if you look at the currency, I can predict what your economy is going to do. Is it going to implode based on your currency? And if your economy implodes, what is that going to affect? It's going to affect your birth rates, which then affect your small business, which then affect your property ownership, which then affect your taxes, and it's a cascading effect. And to my knowledge, I don't know of anybody in any university in this country or anywhere probably in this world that teaches that. And there's a reason they don't teach that. It's because they either A, don't know it, or more likely, all they've done is the university system is just designed to just keep reteaching and regurgitating the same crap over and over and over, right? There's no boots on the ground I was just talking to my wife about this. There's no boots on the ground experience. There's a lot of guys that are teaching stuff that is decades old. It's ancient history, and none of that stuff actually works anymore. So, plus there was this theory for the longest time in the late 1800s and early 1900s, there was this theory of having the well-rounded student, right? Where this is where you had your required classes come in. If you wanted to be, let's say you wanted to be a veterinarian, so I'll use my wife as an example. You want to be a veterinarian. Okay, so now you need to take, here's this required class in English Lit, and you have to take this extra class in, 16th century obscure French poetry. What the hell does that have to do with anything to do with being a vet? Well, it's because, we have all these professors that have nowhere else to go, and they teach these ridiculous disciplines, and so we have to have required classes. Now, there was a theory that existed, and this is a viable theory, that you would draw from other disciplines. So if you learn from other disciplines, you would become a well-rounded student and a well-rounded person. And what that would do is that would allow you to draw from these other disciplines to put together your own style, your own way of doing it. So I do this in my businesses. I've owned several businesses, many. I can't even remember how many I've owned. And I still draw from a lot of other industries into my current industry, and I bring a lot of that experience with me. And it allows me to have an insight that others can't, right? Because I bring a ton of past experience, right? But you can't teach that. That's the problem. And so that's the part that the university system got wrong. You can't teach that. You have to let people learn that. You can't teach it. There's no way to test for that. There's no way to test for creativity, right? Even Jordan Peterson agrees with that. There's no way to really test for that. You can kind of test for it, but that's not real world on the ground experience, right? You're hip shotting, right? It's the marshmallow test. You're hip shotting. You're kind of getting the answer sort of that you're looking for, but you're not probably getting the answer. You're not getting the answer you think you're getting. So in the university system, the theory was that you have this well-rounded student and they'd be able to draw from all these different sectors, and that would make them a better, a more efficient veterinarian or doctor or whatever, or engineer or something. Well, the thing is that's not necessary anymore, and hasn't been, I would argue, for the last 20 years. And it definitely hasn't been necessary for the last 5. And I do mean like for real. Like, it is pretty much not even close to necessary. We are 5 years way past that now, well past that. And the reason that is because we have this. We have the internet. We have, things like TikTok. We have things like YT and other video platforms that if you want to geek out on the collective works of Shakespeare, and you want to like learn from somebody who really loves Shakespeare, right? I guess they call those guys Freudians or something like that. Anyway, but you really want to do that. There are probably 300 guys on the internet right now that you could go study under, and they know absolutely everything that you could possibly imagine about that one subject. If you want to learn, about, like, if you want to go into the deep dive of English literature or something like that, you can go to Duke Pesta, and who's probably about one of the best out there. And the guy is just a wealth of information, right? Well, you don't need to go to Columbia, or you don't need to go to Wazoo, or I don't want to, or UCLA or USC or Harvard or any. You don't need to go to any of these institutions. You can just go to his channel on the internet and join for $10 and learn almost anything you could ever probably want to know about English literature. So all those hobbies, again, I'm just pointing out that that's kind of a hobby in the sense that unless you intend on being the absolute best at teaching English literature, and you believe that there is an actual market to go on the internet and do the exact same thing and be able to garner enough people to give you enough money, whatever, you can make $10,000-$20,000 a month to be able to survive, then yeah, maybe it would work. But you're also competing with a ton of other people out there, which is, again, it's why I don't consider social media a business model, and never have. And I've been very clear about that from the very beginning. Unless you can garner that kind of support, right? So with this idea of the university system, it needs to be shrunk significantly, so that if, for example, someone says, "Hey, I want to be a veterinarian," right? Okay, well, or let's pick doctor. I want to pick med school. Let me pick on the doctors for a second here. You want to be a doctor? Okay, so that's fine. You go to med school, and for 18 months you get your chems out of the way, and you get your biology out of the way. That's, by the way, that should be more than enough time. 18 months should be more than enough time to hammer that stuff down. And then from there, you then have to apply. I would suggest this is how I would do it. I would do it similar to the way they do it with aviation. How does aviation work, you might ask, if you're not a pilot? If you want to go become a pilot, you have to go find a trainer pilot. That's another pilot who will train you, who is certified, and who will train you how to be a pilot. And he can say no. He can say, yeah, you frighten me, and I don't want to train you because you're going to do a lot of damage. You're gonna fall out of the sky, and you're gonna do a lot of damage on the ground because you're crazy, or you're not smart enough to be a pilot, or any number of different things, right? Because they're gonna tell you the truth. Right? They're not going to mince words with you because, dude, there's lives, literally lives on the line. Well, the same thing, I would say you would apply that to medicine because, well, once again, we have a situation where there's quite literally lives on the line, right? So you have your chems out of the way, and you've got your biology out of the way, and you've got all your basics out of the way. And you could do that in about 12 to 18 months, and then you go find an experienced doc who is willing to take you on and train you. Differences. Here's how it works in aviation. You actually, as a trainer pilot, have to sign that person off. So if you go up with me and I train you to fly a plane, and then we land and I jump out, and then I say, okay, I think you can solo this. You go around and you do all this, and you, for whatever reason, can't fly the plane or whatever, or you crash the plane, you know, you do a bunch of damage when you come in for landing or something like that, I'm not going to sign your book and say, yeah, hey, competent to solo aircraft. That's not going to happen, because if anything happens, they're going to come back to me and they're going to say, explain yourself. Why did you sign off on this? Right? That's how it works. And the FAA is one of those very rare organizations in government that kind of works after a fashion. I know that may sound odd to hear me say that, but it really is true. It's one of the very few, very few, like one of two or three that actually does a pretty decent job. And it's because it's most people that work, a lot of them are pilots. A lot of them do this themselves, and they don't want to have a mid-air collision with somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, right? Just like if I'm a physician or a surgeon or something like that, and I sign off on you and I say, yeah, hey, now, you know, my son, you are ready to go out into the world. Yeah, if I do that, and then you start stitching people up, and you've left a bunch of hardware in them, you left a battery powered drill in somebody. Yeah, they're going to come back to me and they're going to say, dude, Axel, explain this, because your reputation's on the line, right? And see, reputation is everything. Right? I mean, I talked about this before last week. Reputation is kind of everything when it comes to that. It'll be perfect, right? There's no perfect people, but repeated problems, right? Where like every one of your students is leaving, cordless drills in their patients. Eventually, no one is going to go to you as a doctor, and no one is going to go to you as a student, right? So that would be one of the simpler ways to handle something like that. That doesn't involve staying in these ridiculous universities where you're having to take all these absurd classes that you don't really need and that you could focus on it. And again, it tightens things up and everything, because there's no reason people be spending, they're up into their like late 20s in school. That's just so ridiculous. That's just pure propaganda. You're just trying to train people to be obedient. And the more degrees you have, the more obedient you are, I promise you. Cost $22 to mine and refine 1 ounce of silver. Yeah, I know. They're going to make money on that as well. And of course, keep in mind, when you refine it and you make it to a coin, and then you send it through all the different brokers. I mean, they're all going to mark it up a few percent and everything. So it doesn't surprise me at all. Keep in mind also, the dollar is weak against all of that as well. So let's see here. What do we got? Let's see. That's exactly what's happening in Japan. No, I don't know what we were talking about. You may have to circle back around on that stuff. Good evening to you too. Tough nuts. Japan is not. Oh, that's what I mean. Yeah, Japan. You're right. Japan has had that problem for quite some time. Japan has had a birth rate like a blowout. Just like there's just and nobody there is having a lot of kids, and there is that. I don't know enough about Japanese culture, but I can say that like wanting to bring a child up in what would be considered to be poverty, I use that term advisedly, is considered bad. And so of course nobody wants to have kids and then bring them up in poverty. Although that was a topic I was going to bring this up, and you just reminded me of this, in fact. So let me go down a quick rabbit trail with some of you. What is poverty? If you want to think about it in today's world, right? In the world in which we live right now, what is that? Because social media has you believing, a lot of people unfortunately believing, that if you don't drive a Bugatti and you don't live in a 40,000 square foot mega mansion and you are not, like dating some like grade A top choice piece of ass, then you are an epic failure and you are in poverty. The entire, that's just not true. Consider now that the internet, for example, just this ability right now, you have the ability to survive almost anywhere. Like that's never been the case. I mean, like you can go out to the middle of the woods somewhere and like, oh my God, how do I survive? And if you have internet, there's a guy somewhere on the internet that probably has a video that has like millions of views that will teach you how to start a fire with wet wood. There is, I mean, like, just, you get the idea. I mean, you know, oh my gosh, but I'm in the desert. Like, yeah, there is probably a guy on the internet that will teach you how to get water from the desert. Like, Dune style, okay? I mean, like, I'm sure there is this kind of thing that exists now that has never existed in the past. Never before can you be so dumb and have so much information available. Never before could you do this. So if you have that, and then let's say you have just a reasonable home that has air conditioning, which is like mind-blowingly huge. That is huge to have that. And central heat and so forth, and like all these little things. Like, you are spectacularly wealthy. I'm not trying to just, you know, to belittle people's achievements or anything like that, but keep in mind, a lot of the so-called achievements, the Bugatti, the 40,000 square foot mega mansion, you know, the grade A plus, you know, a top tier choice, you know, piece of ass and everything, you know, for the cameras anyway. Yeah, it's, a lot of the stuff comes with a lot more problems than it's worth. So, you know, so my point is that, like, if you know, people who are able to it's sort of like a comparison is the thief of joy, right? Well, if you're able to just have some of the basics, and then you have the internet, and you have the ability to learn how to make your own stuff. It's another thing too. None of this having to buy a bunch of crap from corporate America. You make a lot of your own stuff. Well, yeah, I mean, there you have it. There's a lot there to I think. This is just my opinion, by the way. South Korea, South Korea, as I understand, they're actually having like birth apocalypse or something like that there, where like the women are just refusing to have kids or something like that. Maybe someone can chime in on that, but there's like, I thought I saw something where it was like the girls in South Korea are like on total strike. They're just not having any more kids. It's like, okay, well, you're like dooming your civilization to effectively gone, right? I mean, it's like there's not going to be anything left. Let's see here. Then law enforcement goes out and starts stealing. Yeah, that's exactly right. Because that's I mean, historically, that's what ends up happening, is that your enforcement class of people, the governments can't afford to pay them anymore. The currency isn't worth anything, and so the enforcers then just start looting everybody, and they do. I mean, that's. And there's no reason to think that, like, well, but we would never see that in this country. Yeah, how many people have said that about the U.S. And the Western world in general, where they've said, oh, we would never see fill in the blank, and yet there it is in real time. COVID proved that. Oh, we would never see mandatory lockdown, blah, 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 blah. You know. We would never see a government print $7 trillion, you know, whatever. I'm a baby boomer. I teach what line of work market to excel in. Oh, well, that's good news. Yeah, I mean, that's just it. I mean, if there's people out there that are looking to excel in something like that, then that absolutely. Or if you're I don't know, or were you teaching Excel? You know, I don't know. I suck on a computer, so that's why I use Apple products, dude. It's like Tinker Toys for Gen Xers. So, hello from Idaho. Hello from Texas. Let's see here. What in your opinion is a good industry to try to dive into? If you're asking me personally or professionally, like, there's a few, but you got to run them like you're a drug dealer, you know, to make any money. Because if you try to play it straight, like, no, the system will take you apart. I mean, I'm just telling you the truth. And by the way, I'm telling anybody this. I'm telling you, my show isn't generally geared towards kids, although I know there's a couple of people who do let their kids watch me, which is why I try to keep it fairly clean on the live stuff. And I don't, you know, I mean, if you've seen my stuff on you know, like, I'm pretty uncensored, but on the live stuff, I try to keep it somewhat clean, because there are people that I do know that they have their kids watch me. But yeah, if you're, you got to run it like a dope deal. I mean, you almost have to run like every business like that now, like almost every single business. In fact, when I was in Washington State, I'll never forget this, buying raw milk, you actually could get more jail time than buying white powder. You can, for buying raw milk. I mean, like this is just the way that it operates. So, is crypto a good market? It depends on what you mean by that. That's too open. You need to tighten that up a little bit, please. Thanks, man, for helping us see the other side of things. Really appreciate time and wisdom. I appreciate you guys. I hope that I'm helpful. That's my goal here. So, oh no, stall. Yeah, no kidding, huh? Yeah, that's one of the first things that they teach you actually when you're a pilot is you go up there. It's like, oh, now shut the engine off. You know, you just like pull the throttle out and just, and then now you just, you know, you stall out the plane and everything. Just keep floating until you stall the plane out, and then listen to the stall warning, and then, yeah. Let's see here. When was the last time you jumped in a plane and someone ran up demanding to see your flight log? No, not very. In fact, I've actually never had that happen, so I can honestly say that. Let's see, what made you buy a house knowing real estate? I have not purchased a house. So, I mean, I am looking at a property, but the property is vacant, and anything that I would do, I will build myself. I mean, I'm pretty handy. So, no, so, I mean, and I got a pretty decent price overall, and an extraordinarily undoable, again, interest rate. So I don't use bank debt or anything, because I don't like bankers for the most part. But when you find a good deal, right? Good deals do happen periodically, and this was actually a deal that actually matched up. It lined up with what I'm doing versus what, and I'm talking about both personally and professionally. It happened to just, the stars kind of align on this, and it's still not 100%, of course, because I'm still technically in escrow, but yeah, it just happened to line up in this situation. But yeah, as far as like buying buying a house, I would tell anybody, like, dude, I mean, unless you're a home inspector and you know what you're looking at with these houses, most modern houses are complete garbage now. Oh my God, we've all seen the videos, right, of the home inspectors who show up and they're like, what the heck? I mean, they look around and they're like, none of the joists are nailed in, and like this, I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's incredible. Let's see here. How do Mexicans fix Mexico? Well, I mean, unfortunately, I mean, if you want my real opinion, Mexico won't be able to really fix itself too easily until the U.S. gets rid of the war on drugs. Like, you have to get rid of that, and you have to take all the profit margin out of that. Once you take the profit margin out of that industry as a whole, and because I mean, like, that's a problem, right? It isn't. Drugs aren't really the problem. Everybody thinks that it's a drug problem. Dude, drugs and alcohol problems have been around as long as drugs and alcohol have been around, right? I mean, like I have this weird conversation, it seems, with a lot of folks that don't understand that like, they think that like this fentanyl problem, oh my God, there's this fentanyl problem in Portland. Guys are walking around like this the whole time. And it's like, that's always been around. That has been around for as long as drugs and alcohol addiction have been around, and drug and alcohol addiction have been around ever since people discovered ways to alter their states. I mean, like, almost every creature on this planet, if I remember right, has figured a way to somehow inebriate or anesthetize itself, even if it's just banging its head against a rock. Okay, so every creature finds a way to alter their consciousness to escape for a little while from this, because sometimes you need to just not be here, right? For even if it's just for a little while. Okay, well, so when you make all of that stuff, and it's like, well, but look, it's an epidemic, Portland and San Francisco, and no. It's like, yeah, those people used to do those and do drugs and alcohol in the privacy of their own home, but you've made home prices so ridiculous, right? And landlords add no value to the economy. They do not. They add zero value on the retail side. They indemnify bankers from loss. That's it. That's the landlord's whole business model. Hey, I'll indemnify you from loss and I'll just mark up everything. It's the truth. Landlords, with the exception of like luxury apartments or luxury condos or something like that, wherein they actually are providing all kinds of crazy services for you, or like luxury hotels or something like that, landlords add nothing of value to the economy. They are a straight liability to the whole of humanity. It's just a truth. That's why they're called rent seekers. That's why in some countries you can actually be arrested for it, for rent seeking, because it doesn't do anything for their economy except make everybody poor. That's really all it does. And it makes people who would ordinarily have a house to do drugs and alcohol in, to where it's not out in the street, it's not out in some tent city or something like that. They would just do it in the privacy of their own homes, and that was how the case for a very long time in this country, and not just in this country, but everywhere in the world, where people had private domiciles like that. So the drugs and alcohol aren't a problem, but the drug money is. Now that's a problem. And for more on that, if you're actually, if somebody wants to geek out on that, you can look up Judge Jim Gray from Marin County. I think he's retired now, but you can look up, I think there's a documentary called In Harm's Way, and where Judge Jim Gray is one of the main guys that are being interviewed about this, and he points this out. This was a sitting judge on the bench who explained the reality of the war on drugs, the futility of it, and the disaster that it's causing in all over the world. Well, Mexico, to your point, is a victim of this because, well, because of course you have lots of money involved, and if you've made something illegal, and every time you up the ante, right, you add more money, right? So when you hear, orange guy, that clown man talk about, we need to have more penalties for this and that and the other thing, all you did was up the ante. So when you up the ante, right, then you up the profit margin. Risk versus reward. And what's weird is that, like, a bunch of you people out there, you guys watch these organized crime movies. It's like, well, Axel, how come you've never been caught for any of this stuff? Because I don't have a fully chinchilla coat. I'm not ringside at a fixed fight with Tyson and what's his name. I don't have a fully chinchilla coat in my closet. Okay? I mean, this is just reality. So, yeah, I mean, anyway, yeah, once you take the drug money out of it by just saying, yep, we're just getting rid of it, we're not doing the war on drugs any longer. When you get rid of that, the profit margin pretty much goes to nothing, because there's really no profit margin in it. It's kind of like there's no profit margin in penicillin, sort of like ivermectin. There's no profit margin in ivermectin, which is why I'm like, oh no, we don't want to use that. That's horse wormer. Yeah, it's because there's no profit in it. So anytime something's illegal, generally, rule of thumb, it's usually because you're trying to make it a profitable enterprise for somebody. This is just reality, okay? So in order for Mexicans to fix Mexico, all they do is just not be getting ripped off, right? And of course, the other side of that is, unfortunately, they don't have a Second Amendment. My suggestion to people in Mexico might be something like, hey, look, you're going to need to have a Second Amendment. And unlike Americans, right, unlike the virtue signaling American right, you're going to actually have to maybe use it a time or two until everybody gets the message that, like, look, we're not doing this anymore. We're not letting you steal our money anymore. We're going to run our farms, because Mexico has a lot of agriculture. It has a ton of agriculture and lots of cattle grazing and on and on. I mean, Mexico is actually a very beautiful country. Lots of Mexico is actually very beautiful. And there's some poverty-stricken areas too, but there's also a lot of very beautiful parts of Mexico. And, a lot of that is agriculture in nature. And, like, there's no reason why that can't continue, in my opinion. And I would say, like, I would also say, once again, comparison being the thief of joy, like, compared to what? Fix it compared to what? Are you talking about, like, well, we want to have it be like the U.S.? You mean a giant corporate oligarchy that's controlled by a bunch of, complete psychopath bankers that completely own the government, lock, stock, and an island guy? Yeah, I mean, it's a tough situation, and again, it's because of the complacency of Americans, right? I mean, just like, I think it was Ben Franklin said, like, I mean, it's a republic if you can keep it. So Yeah. Let's see here. Some of the comments in this live were filtered to protect the community's experience. Probably. I don't know. TikTok, sorry. I mean, old school, growing your own food, become a minimalist. Yeah, I mean, you know, again, within reason. I mean, like, I still like nice stuff. I like Jeeps and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I'm becoming more a fan of, like, you know, pre-Empire vehicles. The modern Empire vehicles, I just don't have any patience for them. And it's not because I'm a Luddite. I mean, hey, I think technology is really cool and all, but I don't need my car to be using, you know, 65, you know, gigs of, you know, of bandwidth every month. Like, that's weird, right? Like, what exactly are you using with all that data for? Well, we know what they're using the data for. They're just collecting more and more data to have to control your pricing. You get your own little individual pricing of everything, and and then of course you also get the if you can afford to pay more, well, they'll just make you pay more, and so on. Like, this is just one of the problems. So no, I think that's why the older vehicle. I mean, I could do an entire video just on on the idea, the virtues of older vehicles, and then like learning to maintain them yourself to the best of your ability, to the extent practicable. And you know, I mean, like that's a whole like series by itself with that, because there's so many garbage vehicles that are out there. So what do you think of drones? I almost have no opinion of them. If you're talking about the military type drones, I think that, you know, I think you should have you know, I think you should have a device that fires shot, you know, so it scatters. Can I come up to Texas? I'm actually down. What's up from Nebraska? That's a lonely, you know, as someone who's driven through Nebraska many times. Yeah, this is a quiet state. It really is. East Nebraska is actually, you know, it's actually kind of a big metropolis, but you get into like western Nebraska, there's not a lot out there. Anything past Lincoln, and it's like there's nothing out there. Hello from Ukraine. I really love your videos. Thank you for keeping up. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I hope everything in Ukraine is going okay, at least from the citizen perspective. You know, the architecture there is beautiful. Let's see here. Trying to go. There's a bunch of people having a conversation here, which is cool. That's fine. Do whatever you want to do. I have to kind of scroll past some of you guys here. So, congratulations on land deal. It's not over yet. There's a couple of moving parts on it, and they're not on my, as in true to form. It's never on my end that the moving parts are on. It's on other parties' ends, unfortunately. So, yeah, I mean, that's really the shame and stuff. But I mean, it's always kind of the case, is that, like, it's a story of my life, right? Like, I mean, I show up late because I'm late to everything. I show up late, but I get my work done really fast. All my stuff is done like that, and now I got to wait on everybody else. Like, I mean, I would have closed last week. So, same with guns; they've been around forever. But all of a sudden, you know, yeah, exactly. That's just it. It's because the people that are trying, always look at the people that are trying to ban that stuff. Look at what they're trying to do. They're trying to take over, and I mean, this is just obvious at this point. Like, they're trying to take over. They've got a rigged system, and it is a rigged system. It's a rigged game. They want to take over, and they can't have you defending yourself. It's just reality. I've been on the lookout for land. Taxes they really are. That was the other thing too, and I didn't mention that, but yeah, the taxes on this particular property are, I don't want to say they're okay, because I think property taxes are fundamentally slavery, because you never end up owning your property and you're just renting from the state. Having said that, they're not bad, and I can live with it-ish. I'll never forget, for those of you who are like, I don't know, take a reading from my audience and see who's paying attention, or who's like been around a little while. I mean, Deborah Medina, back in 2009, 2010, somewhere thereabouts, there was a lady named Deborah Medina who ran for governor of Texas against, you know, oh, I can't remember it was the one before Greg Abbott, and I can never remember the guy's name. Anyway, Rick something. Anyway, and her platform was eliminating property taxes in Texas. That was her platform. Like, that was it. And of course, she was getting a lot of support in Texas. I didn't even live in Texas at the time, and I still supported her in her run because I liked the idea. Because you know how this works, right? One governor, you know, gets rid of property taxes, and then like other states start saying, "Oh, hey, everybody's like leaving our state. What the hell? What do we do?" And like, and so they, you know, I mean, there's a competition that goes along with that. And so her whole platform was eliminating property taxes in Texas, which is not just it is not just property taxes in the way that we think of. It's property taxes for all property you own, right? So it's not just land taxes. It was like, so she wanted to eliminate all this. Anyway, point being, and then she got completely sabotaged by Glenn Beck. True story. True story. Glenn Beck completely sabotaged, because Glenn Beck is a shill. Just like Dave Ramsey and just like all these other guys and stuff. And you want me to start a beef with all these guys? Absolutely. I mean, I have really no respect for almost any of them for what they do, because most of them are just after money. They're just after sponsorship and money and everything. And Glenn Beck, as far as I'm concerned, in my opinion, probably took a payoff and completely sabotaged her campaign. And, you know, and it's like, whatever, you know, trying to tie her in to an Alex Jones conspiracy about 9/11. And it worked, and Texans bought it. Because Texans, let's be honest, they're not exactly the smartest people in the union. It's the truth. I mean, I hate to be a dick about it, but it's like, dude, it's the truth, okay? I mean, Texans bought that. They allowed that, and they completely blew off the chance to have no property taxes in Texas for this other clown that got installed, and whatever. Based on your views and the way of thinking, how do you keep moving forward and motivated? Well, because I'm not a nihilist. I mean, like, the door swings both ways, right? Now it may swing the way it's going for a long time, but it's eventually going to snap back, right? And this is what they're terrified of right now. This is, of course, let's go back an hour to when I was just talking about this. This is precisely why the system right now did what they did to that woman in Florida, where they're like, oh my God, she said deny, defend, oppose. We're going to lock her up. Yeah, that is, I mean, talk about blinking, right? That's, if I were playing poker with the system and I saw them do that, I know they got nothing. If you're really going to go that far out and go completely crazy over something like this, you're like, oh, we're going to make an example of this person. Yeah, you just live restricted for some audiences. Has been restricted. Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, so, yeah, I guess my live has been restricted now because, somebody complained about, well, yeah, probably because I said something that they didn't like. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, so, anyway, that's all it takes is one person who gets all upset about something. Oh, I don't like what this guy's saying. And rather than just scroll on, they got to go complain to TikTok about it or something like that. I mean, whatever. Anyway, so my point is that now, that's how I see this. Eventually it will swing the other way. Eventually other people will, eventually it'll swing. I think I think was the DD&D thing that I said. I think that's what the algorithm picked up on and said, oh no, you can't say that because now you're going to be fomenting, whatever. Okay, that's just not the case. But, so anyway, that's how I stay motivated with all this, is that eventually it's going to swing the other way. And what we're seeing now is an overcorrection on the part of the system. And they're going to go too far, and they're going to tighten their grip. And unfortunately, the tighter they do that, the worse it's going to get. Because remember, you up the ante. Remember we were talking about up in the ante? I mean, anybody who's still with me? When you up the ante, right, then you up the price, right? When the risk goes up, the price goes up. So if you're going to up the risk, right, then what you end up doing is you end up creating, like, okay, well, think of it this way. if you can only, like, let's say that, you commit a bunch of crimes, and you can, I mean, like, you can only be punished for it once, right? I mean, like the so-called ultimate punishment. Yeah, they can only do that one time. So, I mean, at a certain point, like, that's when you can just say, okay, well, that's it. I'm Wild Westing all of you, because, so yeah, you up the ante and stuff, and eventually that's going to end up happening. You're going to push people too far, and that's exactly what's going to end up happening. True story. I mean, I don't make the rules. Like I said, I mean, or like John F. Kennedy said. We all remember John F. Kennedy. I mean, and when you make a peaceful revolution impossible, you make a violent revolution inevitable. It's just the truth. Holding out for too much, and a lot of their houses need a lot of work. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The landlords are. That's probably what I made somebody mad. I made some landlord mad. Let me see what this is. 2 restrictions. Let's see here. Your live is not eligible for recommendation and restricted in the search results because your live does not comply with our For You feed eligibility standards under our community guidelines. Discussion of drugs. Oh God, you gotta be kidding me. Your live contains themes that some may find objectionable. Whatever. Okay, look, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. If you're having an action, like, I don't make the rules, and my discussion isn't about drugs. My discussion was about the war on drugs, and that is an actual thing. There is no way around that. Sorry, TikTok, but you can go fuck yourselves. Thoughts on USS Liberty? Yeah. What do you want me to tell you? USS Liberty is a terrible idea, or it was. Well, how do I answer this? We all know what happened to the USS Liberty. People who don't should probably look it up. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious that that particular country is not on our side, and probably has not been for. If they were ever on our side, they are not on our side now, and that is just the truth. And when I say our, I don't mean the U.S. I mean the people, the American people. They are most assuredly not on our side. That is just a fact. Invite Jay. What? I really don't know what any of this stuff means, guys. So I mean, I'm sorry when it kind of slows this stuff down, but I just don't know what a lot of this stuff means. So if you've never done a live, I mean, I'm not very good at this stuff anyway. But so. Yeah, anyway, so that's why I want to know what car. Yeah, no kidding. Free Luigi, I agree. F taxes, I agree. That's just the truth. Let's see here. What do you believe the real value of gold and silver is if it wasn't being suppressed by the market? Okay, well, if you're asking me to give you a valuation in dollars, right, that's going to be a tough one, because, hold on here.
Did you inform me by accident?
I don't know what happened here.
I was looking at the request. I'm like, I'm not sure if this was meant to do that or not.
Shoot. I don't know what that is. Anyway, yeah. So, let's see here. Anyway, real value of gold and silver. If you're talking about in dollars, that's going to be a tough one, because in most cases, people are still using dollar as a unit of measurement, and it is not a unit of measurements. It's just not. Dollar's a scam. Texans are as intelligent as anybody else. I know. Come on. Don't take that all personal. Okay. Am I an anarchist? No. I don't consider myself an anarchist. So I mean, not in the sense that you probably think of, or that so many other people think of. So if someone would get rid of property taxes, I couldn't care less what they believe. Yeah, that was sort of my point. That was the position that I had on that whole thing when Deborah Medina was running. Was like, okay, like, who cares if she thinks 9/11's a conspiracy? Like, I don't understand. Like, what does that have to do with anything if she's trying to get, so. Still on, don't worry. Yeah, I know. I'm not really worried about any of this. I fully expect to eventually this account to be nuked at some point. I fully expect that, just so you guys know. Like, dude, the stuff, the content that I cover, yeah. I mean, two questions. I watched for a while, and I don't know your name, Axel. Let's see here. Will you ever write a book? Probably not, only because I don't know that anybody would ever read it. That's the real reason. It isn't that I couldn't write all this stuff down. I'm sure I could, and I'm sure I could organize it in such a way that it would actually be cogent and understandable. Having said that, I don't know that anybody would ever really sit down and read it. I mean, I'm a little obscure, and a lot of the topics that I cover, even if I were to like, and it's, by the way, it is a challenge that I have. If there's a weakness that I have in my writing style, and anybody who follows me on the other former Bird site, if you happen to follow me over there, which is just at Financial Fizz, PHYS, if you happen to follow me over there, I post like everybody else, right? I mean, I post a bunch of crazy nonsense, and I make a bunch of jokes and all that. I do all that stuff, the same thing everybody else does, right? But when I do write something like an article, and it'll usually be something like, I'm writing about this, and it will say by Axel. When I write those, one of the challenges that I have is that I end up tightening my writing too much, and I end up losing people because it's a style that I either end up over explaining something, explaining a topic to death, or I tighten it up so much that nobody knows what I'm talking about. And it's a challenge that I have, and I don't have any really good editors that I know. So let's see here. Landlords don't create anything of any value. They don't. No, I mean, the landlords, see, that's just it. The landlords create, I mean, for those who don't know, and I don't know why all of a sudden this went all screwy in terms of like I think TikTok cut the bandwidth or something, but it wouldn't surprise me. But they add value to the bankers. They don't add any value to the rest of the broader economy. They add value to the bankers because they offer the idea of, oh, hey, we found a landlord who will, make sure that all of these bills are paid on a monthly basis. And even if the guy who lives in the house doesn't. So in other words, you found somebody to indemnify you from losses. So that's the only benefit landlords offer. They offer a benefit to the banker. They don't offer any benefit to the average person out here in the real world. So average person is actually hurt by bankers because they just keep adding more and more and more cost. And then of course the counter argument is, well, but the tenants destroy everything. It's because they're not supposed to be tenants. They're supposed to be destroying either A, their own house, or B, taking care of their own house. And but they can't qualify for the bank loan. That's because of the politics of it. That's not because if nobody is borrowing money from bankers, trust me, bankers make money by doing loans. And if nobody's doing any borrowing, they're not going to make any more money. It's just how it works. So they'll figure it out. What do you think of fifth generation warfare and the cognitive warfare that's being committed against us? It depends on what you mean by fifth generation warfare. Because if you're talking about like this, the idea of the internet and everything, I think that I don't trust search engines. I think that I don't trust most of social media. In fact, I believe maybe about half of what I see anywhere on social media, even if I'm watching the video, I believe about half of it maybe. On a good day. I mean, that's just reality, and it's getting harder and harder to discern whether or not somebody's telling the truth or not. And that's because we're losing, we have kind of a low trust society now, and we're pivoting back to a low trust society. Remember, keep in mind, love is a byproduct of trust. I covered this a long time ago in an old video, but love is a byproduct of trust. And if you lose all your trust, then you're going to lose all your love, and that's where we're at. So, thanks for the info. Have you heard of the Lawn Affair? I have not. Not that I'm aware of this stuff. Essential list for homes. Hold on. Essentials list for homes. Security, property, in trouble with police, emergency. But yeah, exactly. I mean, that's just it. And also, it helps if you have like a gate in front of your property and everything, and landmines, etc. Egyptian buildings were caught in the act. Let's see here, the 60s, I believe. Anyway, so that's about all. I'm guessing that they pretty much nuked my account because I'm seeing everything like move in like slow motion. It almost looks like a trip. So anyway, I'll catch up with you guys maybe next week. We'll see what happens with TikTok on all of this. But let's see, what's your view on life? Life. Somebody asked me about that. Was that you? Okay, so life insurance is a really good way to leverage some of the tax code into your favor. You could, if you're at the end of life, for example, you can buy a huge policy with a giant premium and then pay off your, and that pays off your premium. And then of course, when it transfers to your heirs, it does with little to no tax burden because it's an insurance settlement. So there's that. But as far as for a savings account, full disclosure, I have a life insurance policy that I've had for a long, long time. I bought it when I was a kid. And, yeah, I mean, it's just sitting there growing. It's making money, if you want to call it that, dollars. But as far as do I think that they're a good idea? I think it depends on what it is that your goal actually is with it. For me, it has nothing to do with what we would think of as life insurance. For me, it's something else and stuff that I don't go into, but I use it for another purpose entirely. But yeah, I mean, it can be good or bad. I think it just depends on what your goal is with it. Keep in mind, it is denominated in dollars, so premiums are going to be flexible, and the amount of money you're going to get the amount of your return is going to be on par with the worthlessness of the U.S. dollar. So, anyway, I'm guessing that they nuked me. So, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'll see where we're at and everything maybe next Saturday. So in the meantime, have a great rest of the evening, guys.